The Roundtable Hold has always been one of the most confusing things about Elden Ring. In every FromSoft game, we have our hub world where we can find our merchants, and reconvene with the NPCs we gather across our journey. But Elden Ring is the only game that treats it as a nebulous space that exists outside the world we explore. In Demon's Souls, the Nexus is a literal convergence point that lets us enter each location. In Dark Souls, we always have a central spot where we can speak with our Firekeeper. In Sekiro, we have the area Wolf awoke in at the beginning of our journey, which is physically connected to our path forward. And in Bloodborne, we have the Hunter's Dream, which exists in a literal dream space inhabited by the Hunters. This is somewhat like the Hold, except that we know its exact origin as a realm created by Gehrman and the Moon Presence. The Roundtable Hold exists in Leyndell, but when we find it, the whole place is trashed and nothing like the Hold we have access to throughout our journey. The Hold acts as this non-physical space where the Tarnished can't raise a blade against each other, and whether you believe it exists within Grace itself, in another dimension, or in the past somehow, it's completely unconfirmed what its origin point is. Now, in Elden Ring Nightreign, we again start our journey at a Roundtable Hold that works as a hub for interacting with the other Nightfarers, setting our relics, and so on. However, this Hold is different from both the safe space we know as a Tarnished, and the dilapidated Hold of Leyndell. With this video, I'm going to show what I can of Nightreign's Roundtable, and get into the similarities and differences between this hub world and the one we already know and love. First, the most obvious thing to point out about this version of the Roundtable is that our big table in the middle is still radiating that golden light of grace, meaning that Marika has something to do with our journey to take down the Night Lords. But Zach, I hear you ask, didn't the director of Nightreign confirm that there would be no new lore in this game? Yes, he did. However, that doesn't mean that Nightreign is outright ignoring the history of the lands between. It's a different take on the events we know, meaning that there was likely a diverging point somewhere down the line that creates the world of Nightreign. And with that in mind, the Golden Light of Grace still makes sense if we consider that Grace is meant to show the path forward for the outcome Marika wants. We don't know exactly what this Grace is leading us to, as I'm not convinced that Nightreign won't have its own somewhat straightforward story, but given that this is the only way to choose our hunt, it seems to me like Grace wants us to kick some ass. While the table is certainly the same one we know and love, the room it's in has undergone some significant changes, with trees breaking through the ceiling so that only natural light is pouring in, a far cry from the sconces and roaring fire of the Hold we know. This Roundtable is definitely taken back by nature, as we can see how the surrounding foliage grows through the broken walls and cracked floorboards. The way to the balcony is completely blocked by rubble, and the meeting area of the Two Fingers has been destroyed almost entirely, now leading out to the cliff where we start our raids into Limveld. In fact, by going out to this cliff, we can see that Nightreign's Hold sits high above any other land. And given how far we fall to reach Limveld, it's almost as if the area resides in the sky itself. If nothing else, we can say definitively that this is not the version of the Hold we find in Leyndell and Elden Ring. It's impossible that this could be the same space, as it exists seemingly completely on its own, separated from the rest of the world. Another area we can run through is Gideon Ofnir's study, and it seems as though Gideon never took up residence there, as while there are still many books and a roaring fireplace, the All-Knowing's desk is suspiciously absent, and there are many large curtains separating the room into two distinct areas. Also, a hole in the wall creates a makeshift doorway that leads to outdoor training grounds where our Nightfarers can practice combat and their unique abilities at any level against a mannequin. This makes me wonder if this training area was meant to exist in the regular Roundtable Hold as well, and it was perhaps scrapped when it was decided we can never leave the confines of its walls. If nothing else, this outdoor area serves to further separate this version of the Hold from the one we know. You can also take a detour on your way to Gideon to visit the hallway where the Dung Eater sits among the many corpses he's been piling up over the years. And it's immaculately clean. Okay, well not really, these bookcases look pretty dusty, but compared to what we're used to, this is a 5-star experience. I can only imagine how much better musty wood smells compared to what we used to find in here. When we make our way to the area where we'd normally speak with Hugh, we find the Codex, outlining everything you could possibly want to know about Nightreign. But the room just beyond where we get our cuddles with Fia is suspiciously blocked off. I'm willing to bet some of these areas will be opened up after the game launches, After all, we need more rooms for the Nightfarers to skulk around in. But for now, all we have is this little hallway. This area is pretty important though for trying to spot the differences between Limveld and Limgrave, because in this room, we see portraits all over the walls. Whereas in the original Roundtable we see the visage of the Lands Between's first and second Elden Lord, here we only see portraits of Godfrey. There's also a nondescript painting of an area that I didn't get a good enough look at, one of the Erdtree, and a painting of a banished knight. These are the only framed images we find in this version of the Roundtable, and they're repeated again and again, even on the same wall. This does get me thinking though, perhaps in this version of the Lands Between, Marika never took Radagon as the second Elden Lord. This doesn't mean that Melania and Miquella were never born, or that they won't show up as bosses in Nightreign. After all, Marika is Radagon, but if there are no pictures of him in the hold, perhaps he was never really needed, and Godfrey was never banished. That's it, really. The Roundtable Hold of Elden Ring Nightreign is a mirror image of the one we know, but still somehow an entirely different place, much like what they've described Limveld to be compared to Limgrave. I'm willing to bet we learn more through the Codex about how the history of this land has shifted thanks to the emergence of the Night Lords. Perhaps Godfrey is still the acting Elden Lord. Maybe Marika isn't trapped within the Erdtree. Maybe Limveld is simply an amalgamation of the entirety of the Lands Between, being manipulated by the Night Lords, keeping it locked in a never-ending loop of conquest until they've finally been defeated. Whatever may come to pass, I believe our Nightfarers have more to do with it than we currently know, since it's said that they're seeking redemption. I strongly believe that the Roundtable Hold of Nightreign could be an avenue for visual storytelling as we defeat each Night Lord. Perhaps it will change, just as the director of the game has said Limveld will as we climb the ladder to our final confrontation. Either way, one thing is for sure. I can't wait for May 30th. Thanks for joining me as I discuss my observations on the new and improved Roundtable Hold of Elden Ring Nightreign. Did you notice anything during the network test that I didn't? Do you believe this is a completely new area, simply taking inspiration from the hold we know? Or is something else going on? What are the rules of grace in this new world? Do you think we'll get more rooms in the final game? Let us know your thoughts and theories in the comments. Watch the button below light up when I say like this video, and please subscribe and hit the bell if you think we've earned it. We look forward to seeing you again during the ramp up to the next exciting chapter in the Elden Ring world, Nightreign.